Imagine you're the chief of police, and you've spent years hunting the world's most wanted criminal. Then you find out that guy is actually your brother-in-law. So does that make you look like an idiot, or did you know all along? That's basically what happened to Hank Schrader at the end of Breaking Bad, when undeniable proof showed that Walter White really was Heisenberg. In this video, we're looking at the moments where Hank came this close to finding out Walt's secret and catching him red-handed. Before we jump in though, I'm the editor of this channel. If you're interested in working with me, my email is in the description. Now let's get back to the video. So Jesse sets up a meeting with Crazy 8 to sell some meth. When Walt finds out the deal's going south, he knocks Crazy 8 out with some toxic gas. To keep from passing out himself, he puts on a gas mask and even hands one to Jesse. After they think everything's handled, they just toss the masks out in the desert. It doesn't even cross their minds that something so small could leave a trail straight back to them. But here's the thing, Gomez, Hank's partner, finds those masks and hands them over to Hank. Turns out the masks were stolen from J.P. Wynn High School, the exact same school where Walt teaches. Hank goes to the school and shows the mask to Walt. Trying not to look suspicious, Walt asks to check the school's inventory records. And surprise, the masks were taken from the chem lab that Walt was responsible for. Walt's freaking out inside, but Hank, he doesn't suspect a thing. He just assumes some junkie stole them. Walt breathes a sigh of relief. But the next day, Hank goes back to the school and ends up arresting Hugo, the janitor. After doing some digging, they find out Hugo had access to the lab keys. And oh surprise, they also find drugs in his car. So yeah, he becomes the perfect scapegoat. Now here's where Hank kinda dropped the ball. That meth they found, it was pure high-level stuff, the kind even their own forensic chemist couldn't cook up. But Hank just pinned it on some guy who smokes weed. If he'd actually stopped to think for a second, he'd realize the most logical suspect was Walt himself. Next piece of evidence, Tuco Salamanca kidnaps Jesse and Walt, planning to send them to Mexico to cook meth for the cartel. When Walt and Jesse figure out how deep they're in, they try to poison Tuco, but that plan backfires. Tuco catches on, drags Jesse outside, and puts a gun to his head. They somehow manage to mess him up, but then out of nowhere, a black car shows up. Jesse and Walt hide, thinking it's Tuco's cousins, but nope, it's Hank. A huge shootout goes down, and Hank finally takes Tuco out. Now imagine if Hank had shown up just a little earlier. Jesse, Walt, and Tuco would have all been caught right there. But here's the thing, Hank's supposed to be a seasoned cop. So why, after killing Tuco, didn't he bother to search the area? Instead, he just stands over Tuco's body, catching his breath. If he'd looked around just a little more, he would have spotted Jesse and Walt. Let's be real, they're not exactly Olympic sprinters. One's a cancer patient, the other's a junkie. They couldn't have gotten far. And another thing, how did Hank not notice that Tuco's face was already beaten up before their fight? Clearly, he'd been in some kind of altercation earlier. Hank only starts searching the house when he hears that old man in the wheelchair ringing his bell. So get this, at the beginning of season 3, Walt's marriage is falling apart and he's moving out. He's packing up his stuff, and Hank's there helping him load everything into the car. They get to the last duffel bag, Hank grabs it and says, "I got it." But then he notices, whoa, this thing is heavy, real heavy. This is the same bag full of money with blood stains on it. Hank jokes, "What do you have in here, cinder blocks?" Walt freezes for a second, clearly terrified, then after a pause he just goes, "It's $500,000 in cash." Hank bursts out laughing. He literally thinks Walt is joking. I mean, the guy just got separated from his wife. So Hank probably assumes he's depressed and making weird jokes. He even pats Walt on the shoulder, still chuckling. But here's the creepy part, Walt doesn't laugh, not even a little. Because he's telling the truth. And honestly, it kinda seems like Walt was low-key hoping to get caught in that moment. Like part of him wanted the nightmare to end. Think about it, if Hank had just opened that bag as a joke, even for a second, Breaking Bad would have been over right there. Walt got so lucky it's almost ridiculous. Next time though, Hank wasn't so lucky. He was literally just a metal door away from finding out who Walt really was. But here's how it all went down. So after tracing the blue meth back to an RV, Hank started putting 2 and 2 together. Maybe this RV was a mobile meth lab. And guess what? Turns out the vehicle was registered to Jesse. So Hank staked out Jesse's house, waiting for him to slip up. When Walt found out, he rushed over to where the RV was being stored to destroy it. But Jesse found out what Walt was up to through his loyal friend Badger. So Jesse grabbed the keys and headed to Walt. What he didn't know, Hank was following him the whole time. Jesse hops into the RV to confront Walt. Then he looks out the window, and their worst nightmare comes true. Hank had parked right behind the RV and was about to force the door open with a crowbar. Just when it seemed like it was finally over for Heisenberg, the scrap yard owner, this guy named Joe, walks up and drops that iconic line, "You got a warrant." Hank shows him the bullet wound in his chest, like that's reason enough to break in. But Joe shuts him down, "That's private property and I'm not letting you harass my customer." Then Walt tells Jesse what to do. Jesse turns to Joe and asks, "How'd you know about that bullet hole before you even saw the tape? You need probable cause, man." Hank just stood there laughing, but it wasn't a happy laugh, it was that defeated laugh when you know you've lost. Joe and Jesse played him, but Hank didn't give up. He decided he'd just go get a warrant. It seemed like Heisenberg's luck had finally run out, but Walt had one last trick up his sleeve. He called Saul, who set up a fake emergency call saying Marie had been in a car accident. The second Hank heard his wife was in danger, he dipped. By the time he realized it was a setup, the evidence that RV was already destroyed. Thanks for sticking around till the end of this video. I'll catch you in the next one.